The remedy. The remedy. What's underneath the situation you don't realize? So let's examine with a critical eye. Put on your glasses and let it magnify the truth that lies hidden under all those lies. Cause everybody has nobility, and if you look beyond what your eyes can see, you'll see they're just like you and me, and now we're giving you the remedy. Welcome to the Remedy Podcast. This podcast is a project of WEBB Squared, a North Carolina nonprofit that works to increase wealth for Black businesses through connection, network, and opportunity. Our host is Stephanie Terry, the Executive Director of WEBB Squared, and our co-hosts are Associate Director Rinnie and myself, Mashallah Salaam. I am the Media and Production Specialist. In this podcast, we hope to bring consciousness to the racial divide and speak on emerging new narratives about race. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you will enjoy the podcast.
Well, good morning, Mashallah and Rinnie.
Good morning.
How are you?
It's Podcast Tuesday. How is everyone doing today?
Fantastic.
Good.
It's been a wonderful, wonderful week. Hallelujah.
That was great.
Yeah.
No hospital visits this week?
No hospital visits.
Knock on
Everybody's
wood.
on the mend. And feeling good. So yeah, life is gravy. You know what gravy is, right, Rinnie?
Gravy?
Yeah.
Like what you put on mashed potatoes?
Rice.
All right.
Unless you're Italian, and gravy is spaghetti bolognese sauce.
Oh, I had no idea.
You didn't know the Italians call gravy
No, I didn't.
what we call spaghetti sauce?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day.
As a matter of fact, our friend Brian, he cooks gravy every Sunday.
No way.
Yeah.
Brian Picarillo?
Yes. We talked about it.
Oh my gosh. How come he's not bringing it over to our house? We'll have to do something about that.
Yes. So that wasn't Brian. Sorry. That was the wonderful guy Jeff that was helping us set up our phone system. I confused my Italians. I'm sorry. All right. That's my mama memory. So anyway, our topic for today is, hold on, I wrote it down because, I got this mama memory. The personal beliefs that make us uncomfortable talking about race. And Rinnie, this is your topic, right?
This is my talk, but yeah, I think I'm just going to start out today's conversation with a confession. I haven't actually been talking about this all that long. It's just been a few months. And, this past year of living in the pandemic has been pretty intense for me because I used the time as a sabbatical to reflect on my life's history and my spiritual journey and where I'm at and my mission in this world. Back in May of 2020, I lost my job that I had for like almost 15 years. And it's just really funny because I feel like there were things that were happening in that environment around issues of race and racism and racial equity that because I worked there and because I wanted to keep myself comfortable and I didn't want to rock the boat, and I was already walking on eggshells because, truthfully, you can read the writing on the wall when you know that your time there is limited and you really want to just hold on to your job, no matter what. And so when there were things happening there, I found that I couldn't speak to them. And part of it was just where I was at in the leadership hierarchy, because there is a hierarchy of power that keeps people who are lower from speaking about things. But I also just felt like I wanted to be comfortable, I wanted to be safe, and I could feel the tension. I was walking on eggshells and I knew I wasn't safe. And if I would have been talking about the things that I saw were going on, or if I had been open about like whose side I was on in the conversation, that it was gonna like cause me some discomfort, and that, you know, the inevitable happened. I lost my job, but I was afraid I would be losing it before I lost it, you know? And that kind of got me thinking just about voice in particular, and how hard it is for certain people in our world, in our universe, in our communities, to actually have an empowered voice. And this whole exploration of who I've been in this relationship with the world and these power systems that are toxic, I've been somebody who has, for the most part, been probably since I was little told, you're not smart, don't speak up, don't say this, don't say that. I remember the earliest incident of trying to raise my hand once in an English class back in high school. And the result of that was being pushed up against a locker and told nobody cares about what you have to say. And, you know, just that being bullied as a woman in a man's world and being told boys will be boys, and then going to college and being in a toxic department where when I brought problems to the professors, they're saying, well, what do you want us to do? You know, silence these guys from speaking their mind? I mean, they were sexually harassing women in the department. And it was just, again, boys will be boys. You have no voice. And, you know, just this part of, you know, just our early memories of being treated this way, and then encountering different people within my life who pretty much made me a non-person, you know, because when I tried to speak up and they would say, you know, I have no use for you. And I even had a boss, like a brand new boss in the last job within 3 weeks of being there, telling me, don't expect me to get to know you. You know, I'm not going to be your friend. When you are encountered with this, like your whole life in different areas, you know, you internalize that as like, there's something about me that, and the personal belief system that develops within one's soul and one's heart, that one has no power, one has no voice. Mm-hmm. And that's a very, very sad realization for myself to come to. But I know that for me, that there are others who are experiencing that too. There are others who have been on that side. And as a white person with very little power to protect myself, I can see why these are very hard conversations to have within our communities if we are in a place where we have no power.
Yeah, that's weird that you say that, because, you know, from a Black perspective, a Black woman perspective, you have way more power and agency. So that's just interesting. So, Rinnie, when you were talking, it was just like bringing up like a bunch. I was like, okay, we could go this way, we could go that way. It was just bringing up a bunch of thoughts. So one of the thoughts was, was there like a degree of, because you said you like witnessed some injustices going on around race, right? But because, you know, of your comfort and just not feeling empowered, like you didn't feel like your voice would matter.
Right.
Am I getting that right?
Right. And then that it wouldn't matter to the leadership structures, the power structures that be. Right. Like, they're not going to take the time to say, Rinnie, what's your thoughts on this? You know these people, you've been here for 14, 15 years. What is your perspective? What can we do to like make this better? I did not have a degree of power within the institution to actually speak up and make any kind of suggestion or change.
So the imagery that came to my head was like this is, you know, now times. But is this the same dynamic that was going on during slavery? You know, during Jim Crow, where it was just like, you know, injustice is injustice. There's degrees to it.
Mm-hmm.
But is this the same phenomena that was happening inside, where you could turn your head, you know what I'm saying, and like become, you know, not want to risk not being a part of the status quo, where you could just, you know, not be moved enough to say anything. Like so that's one of the first thoughts that I had. Then the next thought was like this whole being a part of the group
Mm-hmm.
is huge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like being sanctioned by the community.
Mm-hmm.
Let's call it the community. Whether the community is like right or wrong, but being a part of the community, whatever community you come from, I think is such a powerful dynamic that, I mean, it's the same thing like, you know, with gangs, or it's the same thing like if your community is a certain religion and you're not, or if your community, you know, eats a certain way and you don't, or your community has a, you know, culture around, you know, marriages and you have a completely different, or if your community is completely heterosexual and you're not. So there's like this whole thing about being a part of the community versus expressing who you are. So that came up. And then the last thing that came up for me when you were talking was this separate identity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I have to, and this is, I think, something else that's kind of universal to human beings, where the way that we are now is like, I don't see myself in the other person. I see the other person, and then I am myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so this way that we identify who we are, my grandmother used to say, one suffer for all suffer for one, when she was like handing out punishments for whoever did something wrong. Like she was like, oh no, everybody's gonna suffer, right? But there's something like really wise in that, because in fact, we all do suffer if one of us is suffering, because we are connected. But because we don't identify that way, we, you know, this is how we uphold the paradigm of separate, you know, that we have this suffering, this pain, this injustice. I mean, like, look at the, you know, people won't even freaking wear a mask because they won't get sick, or they feel like they can make it, and they can give a damn about someone that has a, you know, this may not be as healthy or strong or whatever. Yeah. So anyway, that's what came up for me.
I think what I want to say in response to you is that I do not see myself as a victim in this. I feel like this is me confessing to my complicity, that I was complicit in a system that took power away from other people, and that I was complicit in not speaking to that power, not engaging that power. And I've wrestled with that, and I've come to the conclusion that yes, there were powers within me about who I believed myself to be as a person that kept me from talking about race and racism. But I'm naming those powers now, and I'm engaging those powers, and I'm saying, enough. I do know something about this, and I can, Stephanie, we talk all the time. I can be in real, authentic conversation with people about race, and I'm not scared anymore.
Right.
And part of that fear is I've already lost everything. There's nothing that anybody can take away from me. And that's a very good place to be, because now I'm kind of outside that system, and I have strength in myself.
That makes sense. So when you first brought up the topic of what we were going to talk about, I was like, you know, based on our race, we're situated so differently around this topic. So I love that you shared, like, okay, how it works out for you, but there's just like a whole nother way that Black people even though we're all different, you know, but I should say this Black woman looks at that question.
Well, I was thinking as far as it being difficult to speak up for certain things or certain people, especially when you're younger and you're in school and you have authority figures like telling you not to and saying that you're being a nuisance or saying that they rather not hear you speak about those things. It can be intimidating, and I feel like nowadays I see more young people speaking up and having the courage to speak up, but it took a while to get to that point. And I think that social media and people coming together to talk about these kinds of things have given people the courage because they don't feel as alone. But in a time where you didn't really have that or have that community of people encouraging you, then it was definitely more difficult because the only people that you could really look to are the authoritative figures in your life, like teachers and parents. And if they all are saying not to say anything, then that's just the only thing you'll have in your mind.
Mm-hmm. You know, so there's some themes that are coming up, and there's like this power structure or authoritative figures that, whether they're real or imagined, they're structures that live, you know, as real things. Like, you know, if we're gonna let's talk historically for a moment. The power that the government can affect on, you know, a person's body, you know, so if we're going through all the history that we all know around enslavement and things like that, the policies, like all the ways that entities, governments, people outside of yourself can have power over you, right? And then you said something about complicity and all the ways that we're complicit with that power. And the easiest way to think about that is like just, you know, fear of being harmed, right? That's like a natural human response to any force that you feel is bigger and stronger than you. Like you're gonna comply because you don't want to get hurt, right? And so that explains a lot, because you want to live, because the will to live is I think probably the most powerful thing that we have, aside from the will to love, like, you know, to be loved. I may be wrong. These are my thoughts, y'all. I may be wrong. I'm just riffing right now. I'm just sharing, like, deeply.
Riff away.
Have you ever wondered, like, how one or two people who, for some reason, everyone believes, well, they may have the position or the title, and then everyone obeys them, even if nobody agrees with them?
Yeah, I do wonder about that. We put people on pedestals because of their position in society, whether they're politician or a doctor or pastor, and they can treat people crazily horrible. And yet, because of their position, and that's why we have the hashtag Me Too, and that's why we have hashtag Black Lives Matter, because it's part of, you know, the resistance to these, like, people who are at the top who do these things that are horrible.
Well, I call them master manipulators.
Yeah.
Right? Master manipulators. And they're very, very, very clear about things that most people are not very clear about. And one of the things they're very clear about is how to get people to obey them. Right? And there's like 1,000,001 ways. You know, the hardest way to get people to obey is actually through force, right? Like physically subduing, right? Because it requires a lot of energy, and, you know, you got to get people to do it, right? But the easier way is just not even the physical actual force, but just the threat of it, right? Because of the way human beings, I don't know, this is like a mind thing. And so, y'all know, people that are listening that know me know that I'm a community organizer. And so this like power structure dynamic and why people obey like ridiculous regimes, that are just exploiting people. There's so many reasons. And they kind of fall into the categories. So one is threat of just fear of violence, right? Another is for reward, to be a part of the power structure, to be a part of that team, especially if you have some sort of, you don't feel good about yourself, right? Then you want to be a part of that.
And that, we've talked about Stockholm Syndrome a little bit here and there, but that's part of it too, is that we actually kind of fall in love with and identify with the oppressor because we want to be safe and comfortable. And that person who's got the power is telling us that if you get on board with me, and that they're holding, like they're hostage takers. They're the people in the bank who are robbing the bank and have the gun, and they're going to take you as a hostage, but you're going to fall in love with them because your life is in their hands.
Yeah. And then there's just like for comfort, because it's comfortable to just not challenge anything. There's other reasons, just I would say just like, just naive, I'm just not going to get involved, like kind of like I don't know what's going on, I'm just living in my own little world, and I'm just going to stay in this world, and as long as it doesn't encroach on my little world, then whatever's happening out there is fine. There's like a bunch of reasons, but the thing that ties all the reasons together is around the beliefs that we have about like who we are, and like it's an identity thing, and if we believe that we're these victims, powerless, small, voiceless, insecure, weak, unable, then we will be in relationships, hierarchical, power over under relationships with people that don't believe that about themselves forever.
Yeah, and truthfully, the pandemic is probably the best thing that could have ever happened to me because it got me out of those systems of power dynamics that I could actually really step back and analyze my life and say, no more, I'm not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And the work we're going to be doing is going to be bringing our conscious conversations and our perspective to help people who have been influenced by these power systems.
Or we should say, not to help people, but to build a community. To build a community of people that are conscious about these power systems. Yeah.
And I think we're building another power system that's based on relational power that is going to stand side by side with these old systems of hierarchical, unilateral power. And we're gonna say, hey y'all, let's be in relationship with each other in a different way.
There's a completely other way to be.
Yeah, and I think that that's the reason for making this point. I think that's why we're talking about this, because we recognize that these old power systems, they're gonna like topple under their own weight, because people are gonna extricate themselves from that, and people are gonna be hungry for something else. And the work we're gonna be doing is going to help people find that.
Yeah.
The point that you made, Stephanie, about not believing in yourself, it can allow you to be manipulated by people who are in these positions of power. And also the idea of scarcity, like you brought up, Rinnie, in the last podcast, is definitely something that has been used Probably since the beginning of time, in order to control people, because with scarcity comes fear, because when you feel like you don't have enough, you feel like you don't have enough to survive, and then that goes back to survival. So I think when a person who is in position of power, like your boss or someone who can get you to the point that where you need to be in order to survive, and they decide to abuse that power, they usually say, oh, you will never make it without me. And people think that, oh, this is my only chance to ever have anything, or this is the only time I'm ever going to reach my goal. And if you continue thinking that way, then you'll continue being under that control and manipulated. Because I think that we all have been taught by society to believe that, oh, you only have one shot to make it. And however you get that shot, you just better take it, or else you won't make it. You won't survive.
Yeah, power is always about consent. It's always about a choice, and it's easy to forget that because there's just so many other like emotional dynamics going on when you're giving consent, you know. And Mashallah, you just said something that just like, you know, when you think that you need this situation or this person in order to survive. And that's the other thing about like these hierarchical power arrangements, is when you forget where things come from. When you just and you think that something that you need is coming from someone else. When you forget literally like that you're the source, and that things just cause and effect, like a proper understanding of cause and effect, where things come from. And as soon as you think something comes from outside of yourself, boom, you have weakened yourself in a way that you can be manipulated by people that, or entities or forces or whatever. I forgot. I was at a job that I forgot that my well-being was about my well-being and not about trying to please the people who I was working with. And for an entire year, this is to that question, this is my confession story. I made myself small, and when I saw I was intimidating people, I made my voice small. I mean, when I even just think about it now, it makes me so angry and it makes me want to cry about how I had to reduce the beautiful, brilliant person that I am to make people who felt like they, you know, who I had to report to, comfortable. And I made that choice because I thought that they were the, you know, responsible for me being able to make a living and survive. And I went into this like deep illusion, and I'm so freaking glad that it was over, that I don't work there anymore, because it was an exploitive relationship, but it was the best thing that could have happened to me, because it brought home this complicity and how easy it is to forget who you are, how easy it is to want to be a part of a group that you don't even belong, like that you should not be a part of. It should be uncomfortable because you don't belong there. You know what I mean? But I was willing to sacrifice the truth about who I am and what I know to be a part of this group that didn't know how to do jack, actually.
Can we make a vow that we do not sacrifice in this work that we're doing
Absolutely.
together, that we let ourselves be brilliant and amazing, and forces of power that people just didn't see coming?
Absolutely. Never again. And that's why we formed WEBB Squared.
Yes, that's
you know,
right.
Because this is about helping Black entrepreneurs make their dreams come true. This is about building a community of relationships. This is about understanding that we are the sources of our supply, and that that the sources come through like-minded people, and that we're way more powerful than what we can even imagine. This is about knowing that we are independent, but dependent on each other.
Yes.
Right? For the health and wholeness and well-being of the whole.
Yeah. And, this might be a good place to wrap up because we are now doing fundraising campaign for WEBB Squared, so we can build capacity to do the wonderful programs that we're envisioning to help entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And last week we sent out our first fundraising letter.
Woo-hoo.
And I would like to wrap this up by thanking the people who have responded to the fundraising. And before we talk about those people who responded last week, I want to lift up 3 people who gave us some money to start.
That's right.
At the beginning. And that was Ellen Rubenstein,
Vincent Miller, and Timothy Alsop. Y'all have been in our corner from day one. Woohoo!
Thank you so much for your generous donation to get us started. And then last week we had a number of people who sent us in contributions, and I just want to lift their names up real quickly. A dear friend of mine from Chicago who I went to seminary with, Edwin Simeoni, Jack and Lori Deniston, Ed and Janet Flowers.
And then my friends Kelly Bolt and James Barrett, and both of our friends Dwayne Gilbert, and is Jody your friend?
Jody Forehand is a friend of mine, yes. We used to walk together.
And last but definitely not least, our friend and just spiritual soulmate and one of the founders of WEBB Squared, Dave Gold, who constantly stays in our corner.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But yeah, woohoo to our founding sponsor, donor, friends, funders, yay! Y'all rock.
We are so excited about the work that we're bringing to this world, and we hope that you'll join us in that work.
Yes.
I think it's important to know that we do have the power within us to create our own reality, and that we don't need to fall victim to those people that want to control us or want to manipulate us, and that we can have or create opportunities that we want for our lives. And if something looks like it would be harmful to us, or if something is causing us to make ourselves smaller, then that's just not the way that we are supposed to go. That's not our path.
Yeah, I think you summed it up great.
And I believe, my friends, that's a wrap. The remedy is a process.
This wraps up the remedy. The revolution is through dialogue. Believe that.
This has been a joint podcast of WEBB Squared and Afro Future Productions. For those of you interested in learning more about our work at WEBB Squared, you can find out more at webbsquared.org. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. This is our conscious conversation. We hope you will subscribe today on your favorite podcast platform. Join the Remedy Membership Forum on Patreon to join us monthly for our members-only discussion. That's it for today. Until next week, thanks for listening. What's underneath the situation you don't realize? So let's examine with a critical eye. Put on your glasses and let it magnify the truth that lies hidden under all those lies. Cause everybody has nobility, and if you look beyond what your eyes can see, you'll see they're just like you and me, and now we're giving you the remedy.